Hello, just a quick video on how to cast on and knit and purl. I did a quick tutorial in another video, but I figured let me just do one more. To cast on, you'll take your yarn and your needle of choice, either double point or circular, in whichever size, and you will choose the cast on method of your choice or whichever your pattern calls for. My personal preference, at this point at least, is I believe what is called the Norwegian cast on. I will take my yarn as such in my hand, and that's just putting it right on top of the thumb and the pointer and grabbing the yarn. I like to go from under and spin around so that it tightens up. And I go under, down, around, back under, and down, drop off and pull. Under, down, around, back up and down, and drop off. Again, under, down, around, up, down, drop off. In the beginning, if you're a beginner knitter, it's definitely muscle memory and teaching your hands and your fingers to move the way that you want simultaneously. And the more you do it, the faster you get. Just practice, that's all. Just to cast on a few stitches. Myself, I like to use that first twist as my first stitch. To begin knitting, if you choose to leave your tail alone and leave it hanging, that's perfectly fine, nothing wrong with that. You would just begin knitting. And then you'd have to weave in the tail at the very end, or whenever you choose to weave it in after a few rows at least. To avoid having to weave in the ends, what you can do is twist the yarn, wrap it through your hand, and you just begin to knit. It will be a little bulky because you're doing the double stitch, but it will blend in. But if you choose to not do that, that's perfectly fine. You would just weave in the ends. I just prefer to not weave in ends if I don't have to, if I can avoid it if possible. So this is the knit stitch, and all I'm doing is taking my right needle, putting it into the front of the stitch. When you turn it, you'll see the back of the stitch. So for knit stitch, I am putting my needle into the front stitch so it pops out of the back, just like that. Into the front, and it just pops out of the back, and I'm grabbing the yarn down and around and pull it right back through where you entered in on. Again, push it through the front loop so it pops out of the back, down and around to grab it, and you just pull it back through where you started from. And that is the knit stitch. I'll show you here for purl stitching. And before I do that, I did not mention when you're knitting stitches, your yarn will always stay in the back. So I'll show you that again in a little bit, just as a reference. Purling, you want to bring your yarn to the front. And I like to pull the yarn down for that first stitch because it can be kind of tight. So what I'm doing is taking my right needle, and you see how it has that leg because of the way I'm pulling it. I just push right under the leg. Again, I'm just pushing right under it. It's like a lever. Go up, go down, go back out the way you came in, and pull the stitch off. Again, you're going to go under the leg, up, down, go back the way you came. Under the leg, pull the yarn up, come down, back the way you came. Let me get rid of that tail. It's getting kind of short. Usually when I don't have that double tail, I'm just holding it up. So I just keep the yarn at the front, up, down, pull out. My yarn is already up, pull down, back out the way I came in, down, out. Knit stitching, at least for me, seems to be a faster stitch than purl stitching. But again, with practice, it goes faster. Again, you can pull your yarn down using your pointer finger as a lever, or you can leave it up. But in either case, your yarn is at the front. You put your needle behind that front leg, pull down, push out. And this is continental knitting. There's so many different ways of knitting. You can, choose any method that fits best for you. And to show you again with the knit stitch, the yarn stays in the back. Remember, purl stitches come to the front, but knit stitches stay right in the back. Going through the front leg, it pops out of the back. Grab, pull out. and that double stitch will get buried, so it becomes pretty invisible in the knitting. Some people can tell, some people cannot, but it just kind of gets buried in there. It just feels a little bit more squishy compared to the other stitches. There we go. That was the knit row. And I'll show you one more purl row. Again, I like to pull to make sure that I can get into this first stitch easily. Push through, up, down, back out the way you came in. In, down, out the way you came in. In, up, down, out the way you came in. And try not to do that where you cross in front of it. Always come behind the working yarn to do a purl stitch. I catch myself just automatically doing that, and it won't work. Remember to stay behind that yarn. That's why sometimes I'll pull my finger down and then pull up and down to make sure I don't make a mistake, but mistakes are okay. You can always frog things back if necessary. And the purl side has all the bumps. And the knit side has all the V's.